Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Friday SLO talk. My name is Yarek Yanyo. I'm the faculty coordinator from Santa Ana College School of Continuing Education. And this is our Friday SLO talk for September 23rd, 2022. It's our second talk this semester, and we are talking about course content analysis, curriculum, and syllabus. We are in a search or exploration of the links between course outline of record and documents that govern the course content and student learning outcomes assessment, or skills and competencies that students are learning, acquiring in our courses. We do have guide to assessment of student learning, and I'm going to be putting this in the chat room momentarily. And at this point, I would like our presenters to introduce themselves. And Enrique, please take it away. Tell us who we have today. Good morning.
Thank you, Yarek. Good morning, everyone. My name is Enrique Jauregui. I'm the SLO coordinator for Fresno City College. In front of you, you have the agenda. It's the 6 steps for SLO implementation. But today, we're going to be doing step 1. The presenters will be Lorraine Smith from the Dean of Instruction of Fresno City College, Dr. Wendy Conin from Long Beach City College, and Candice Morales Dixon from Long Beach City College. Of course, our moderators is Dr. Yanyo and myself.
And we do have Tricia Wilgin from Long Beach City College, right?
Thank you. And I was going to say that, and Tricia Long Beach is the SLO. Well, actually, Tricia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Tricia Wilging. I'm the SLO coordinator, and I teach in the Reading and Teacher Preparation Department at Long Beach City College. And I also will probably share a little bit here at the end of Dr. Koenig's and Candice's presentations today. I have one additional faculty member with me. His name is Michael Robertson, and we're going to share a little bit about a syllabus submission process that we've implemented at our institution. So you'll hear a lot from LBCC today, but we're thrilled to be with you all. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. The first presenter, Lorraine Smith, she is the Dean of Allied Health and Physical Education at Fresno City College. She began her career as a tenured faculty, served as in the Academic Senate, and was the Outcomes and Assessment Coordinator. Ooh, Lorraine. With experience in accreditation, compliance, and student learning assessment, she dedicated to supporting curriculum and programs and not in the community. So Lorraine, take it away. If you're ready, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everybody for being here. When Enrique asked me, I was like, what do you want a dean talking about to do all this group? But I did start my career as faculty. And again, as Enrique mentioned, I was the Outcomes Assessment Coordinator at a time where we were really trying to wrap our minds around what is this and how do we do this? So the spot that we're at now is, I think it's just automatic, but a lot of us don't know how to even start or what to do. So I am going to share my screen, and I will warn you, it is not PowerPoint, but it's on a Word document, and there's a method to my madness. So I'm going to share that right now. And I'll just start off by saying, all of us, some of us have more experience than others in the community college system. Some of us are teaching for the first time, or when we become a teacher, we're handed curriculum and say, here you go, teach this. And it's already created for us. But really, when we think about curriculum or our courses or programs, it really has to start with, why are we offering this course? What are we trying to do with this? Why do we have this program? When I first became an instructor, one of my first years, I was told students need a course in HIPAA compliance. I was working in medical, and as you'll see, I'll leave some of the medical classes and background that we have here. And I said, well, how do I even go about this? And they said, find a textbook that's on the topic, and then just use that information and make it and use that as the objectives and whatnot. So I thought, okay, that's what I'll do. But I really want to, and maybe some of the courses that you have were developed that same way. And maybe they came from, or you walked in and it's already there. So it's like, okay, this is what it needs to be. The good thing is that, we do have the ability, as you start teaching, as you're here, for those who have been a long time, the curriculum review process too really allows you to go back and revisit. What are we looking at? What are we trying to do? And I know as dean, there's a lot of exploration, especially in career technical education, what's needed in the workforce. So that's why too, we might look at curriculum more on a new curriculum more often than maybe some of the other GE and other areas. So somewhere along the line, the curriculum starts with an idea. What do we want students to be able to do? And then the next question, what do they need to know to be able to do it? So really, when you're thinking about the end goal, you should really start thinking about program outcomes. And again, as I mentioned, I'm the Dean of Allied Health, and I've learned a lot from a lot of the allied health programs because they already have a framework for measuring student outcomes and assessment. But really, the ideas can be applied across all programs. So my examples today, there will be from a respiratory therapy class. And I'm really going to walk through some of the components that are in the course outline. So again, the program outcome is we want students to be respiratory therapists. So if your class is something, we want them to transfer. We want them, if it's GE, we want them to be able to think critically. So really keeping in mind the end goal is important when we get started. So we develop courses to provide the instruction needed and to help students get there. So we think of a course as a manageable, elements, segments within a sequence that's students starting from point A. How are they going to get to that end goal? So I'm going to start with the course title, and you'll start noticing, and hopefully the font is large enough for everybody to see. And I'm practicing using this Word document instead. But the course description really needs to explain for the student, what is this course about? So I'm going to read it for you because it says this course is an introduction to the respiratory care practitioner profession as it relates to evidence-based practices, ethical and legal mandates, forms of communication, documentation. Actually, I won't read all of it, but the key words that I have in different colors, those are the things that we have to, the students are expecting that the course will cover those things. So right there, the course description lists some of the objectives, because in this course, this is what we're going to do. So this is one main part of the course outline of record. Then as an instructor, when you say, okay, that's the description, what are the objectives? How are we going to, what am I going to teach? This is where I like to talk about the difference between teaching and learning. So you as faculty are going to be either in front of the class or now in front of a Zoom screen or in Canvas or Blackboard, whatever that might be in a learning management system, trying to determine what am I going to teach? How am I going to get these objectives across to the students? What discrete skills and content or small steps are we going to take in order to get to the outcomes? So we think of objectives as what you're going to cover throughout your class. So, note, it's always good to look at publisher content, but really I caution faculty to not just use publisher content because you are the expert. There's parts, if there's content within a book that you selected for the class, that's not part of the outcomes, it's not part of your objectives, don't cover it. You don't need to just cover things. If you don't like the order that it's presented in a certain text, you don't need to do it. So really the plan for faculty should be, these are the objectives and how am I going to get this content across to students? So for the class that I picked as an example, they had 5 course objectives. Discuss the history of respiratory care and current areas of professional opportunities, discuss professional organizations, and then you can see some of the others. The colors, again, align with what was in the description. The course description kind of on a broad base mentioned all of these things. So as the faculty is preparing their modules or their lesson plan, they need to make sure that all of these things are going to be covered in their lecture content or in some shape or form in the course. So let's talk now about the course student learning outcomes. And again, if you're in front of the class here talking to the class, you don't know what students are gaining. They might be listening, they might be on their phones, they might be talking, they might be daydreaming. But really the students are all individuals. So the student learning outcomes, we really need to think about, what are they learning from this? I'm giving them bits of information. I'm talking to them. I'm giving them these, I'm covering this content that are in the objectives, but really what are they learning? So the student learning outcomes are measurable skills and abilities that students can demonstrate after completing the course. We really want to think about it more involves synthesizing, analyzing, and applying it. So what are those key things that when they leave, they can demonstrate, and you're like, all of those little steps accumulated, were synthesized and became something. So in this course, again, it was important. This is the first course in the respiratory care program. So it may seem obvious, but it's really important that they understand the role of what a respiratory care professional is, that they can describe the role to their peers. So when their Aunt Bertha asks them, what are you doing? They can describe all of the exciting things about a respiratory care professional, and not just reading from the text, but they're making it their own. List and explain the importance of professional organization and legal requirements. And then again, there's a specific example of gather and analyze qualitative and quantitative information to complete SOAP documentation, considering legal requirements using proper communication techniques. So again, if you see the codes, all of those things were separate objectives, and they were also in the course description. So those are just some examples. And I do want to caution that, I hope nobody's taking notes and copying these. These aren't necessarily the best or the only way or perfect SLOs. And I think sometimes we get caught up with, oh, that wasn't the best, or how am I going to measure that? Remember the goal too, is that we want to ensure that we want our students to learn, and we want to be able to assess, like, did that work or did that not work? When I was teaching, one of the things that the best SLO tools that I had sometimes was, okay, I would ask the students, these were the SLOs, how do you think you achieved them? Do you think you got it? And they would tell me, oh, I think I got this one, that concept was kind of hard for me. And, they would tell me what worked and what didn't. So don't rule out that as an SLO assessment. So then when you're developing either using a course outline of record, or creating a new course outline of record, or looking at how you're going to teach a class, one of the next parts of that is creating a class outline or calendar. That's going to be your roadmap for the class. A lot of times you just do what topics are going to be covered. A lot of faculty would list week 1, week 2, all the way through week 18 finals week for us, or you lucky faculty that have 16 weeks will be jealous of that. But we kind of put a roadmap of what topics would be covered. You might list some major weekly assignments. You add points or value is added to begin evaluating achievement of the course objectives. So there's important dates for course assessments that might be in this part of the syllabus. So in this class, for week 1, there is an introduction to the syllabus and an overview of respiratory care. So again, this purple indicates, oh, that was the first thing mentioned in the course description. It was one of the things that was an objective. And at the end of the course, we want to make sure students really understand the profession. So in this case, there was assignments of introduce yourself and explain why you were interested in respiratory care. Again, we're linking, well, that's an assignment that is going to link to this objective. So even the assignments that are listed end up linking to your objectives and ultimately your SLO. I have more, this one might be a little harder to see, it's smaller, but I wanted to mention week 2 assignments. And again, this is in either your lecture content in the course outline of record, you link your lab content to it. And I'm don't worry, I'm only going to go through 2 weeks. I'm not going to give you just so you get the idea. But in this syllabus and then the course outline, it mentioned this as a lecture topic. So then in week 2, this instructor is going to go over the history of the profession and respiratory care professional organizations. So you know that now I'm bringing in a different color. I first have the purple, which was one of my first objectives, and this rust color was the second objective. So the faculty is introducing these objectives in the course outline of record lecture content, and then also in the syllabus. So in this case, there's weekly assignments again, and they're prepared to review and prepare to summarize these goals. That's American Association Respiratory Care Therapy, Respiratory Care. And they're starting to assign points. So, and this might be in your syllabus, you're starting to assign points so that you can start to assess or evaluate, are students starting to achieve this objective? Are they getting it? We're going to have an assignment where I check their understanding or comprehension or knowledge of meeting this objective. So then this also had a discussion topic. So and remember, there's merging. They're not, so you see purple and rust. They're not one topic, I'm going to cover this objective, then I'm leaving that one behind and I'm just moving to the next discrete topic. There's really trying to be building on concepts and integration of concepts. And then this course outline has start preparing for week 3 quiz, which is assessment 1. And the course outline is, as all of faculty have take and make a course their own. That's what's so great about teaching. That's what's so great about, you're not given this is what you have to do. So, but so each specific unit then can go into more details. So there's also weekly objectives. And any of you who have done presentations in your class, or if you're online, we don't put those in the course outline, but then you look at each week, and your objectives for each week go into even greater detail about how we're going to get to those major course objectives. And we use words here like explain, describe, name, really giving the students some idea of what they should be able to do. What are the objectives for that week? Another important part then of the course outline and the syllabus is going to be, how are you going to assess? What methods of evaluation do you have? And I hope all of you, I think it's a California Community College booklet, the PCAR, that really goes into a lot of details as you want more specific examples and really great explanations about how to look at each piece of the course outline of record. But I'm going to talk a little bit about assignments, exams, and grading. This part of the syllabus will explain how students demonstrate that the course objectives are being met. So as you're looking at what assignments am I going to give, weekly assignments, I tell new faculty, particularly if they came from high school, or that we don't need to grade everything. We don't need to give weekly assignments that's, busy work. Don't kill yourself grading everything necessarily, but really think of weekly assignment should be a vehicle for practicing and checking satisfactory achievement of an objective. So as you're looking at, how am I going to grade things and assign things, how does that tie to the objective? And then points for assignments should align with the importance of the topic or objective. And this is way back in the early days of SLO assessment. We got a lot of pushback. Well, students get a grade, that's the outcome. So if they got an A in the course, they met all of the student learning outcomes. If they got a C, they kind of met them. If they failed, they didn't meet them. Well, I think hopefully we've gone beyond that point where we understand that there is a difference of grading and assessing student learning. Yes, they are interrelated. And it's really hard because you do want to, we don't give students points for showing up and not retaining anything, but sometimes there are points associated with certain activities that might not really be assessing the student's knowledge. And that's kind of a hard thing. That the points, should be aligned with how important that topic or objective is. And there's various formats. So again, in like this course, we have assignments, we have discussions, we have quizzes, you might have papers, you might have projects. All of those options are typically listed in the course outline of record. And that's where it's faculty purview. How am I going to try to assess this? What kinds of tools do I have or can I use that will help me assess if the students are learning? And I know we don't say different learning styles necessarily. There's always different terminology, but basically you do know that students are unique and have different aptitudes and skills. So the way that they present their knowledge, their learning might be in different formats. So as you're looking at your course and how I'm going to do it, consider they're not all going to be multiple choice. They're not all going to be, and that too is when you're using course content provided by a publisher. I would just suggest that you actually look at all of the questions that you're asking. If it's from a test bank, do they align with what the objectives are and what I'm trying to test my students on? And maybe even use your own questions to say, okay, the textbook says this is the correct answer, but explain why you think it's correct. Add some critical thinking of why do you think the others are wrong? So something beyond trying to just, I answered 50% of the questions, half of them I guessed. So is that really assessing the learning? Now, again, it might be a good assignment to have them practice, but is it assessing the learning might be a different question. So again, this part of the syllabus might include important dates for when these assessments are going to happen, because again, we want the best performance from our students. We want to give them the expectations, but we also want to let them, plan their life around when am I going to have a test? Because again, we're not trying to trick them. We're trying to really see, are you getting this? Is this working for you? Did you understand that? So in this course, again, there are assignments and discussions. Each week, the students will be assigned reading. And let's face it, most of us know that reading doesn't happen as much as we want it to happen, but we can make that an assignment anyways. And then this one had for quizzes and exams. After completion of each unit, approximately every 2 to 3 weeks, short quizzes will check understanding of key concepts. 3 tests will be given to demonstrate understanding of how the topics are integrated and to check student ability to critically think about and apply the learning. So in this class, there were four tests, I think, or let's see. Yeah, 3, a couple of tests, but notice how the first assessment was going to be in week 4 and it's purple because that's what the student is going to be tested on. Are they meeting that first objective? The second one, again, is that rust color. The first assessment, the first test is also going to try to cover material for that first objective. Then as they get to other objectives, it's going to be further along in the semester. And this faculty member actually puts assessment 2 is going to check this objective. They actually list all the objectives in their syllabus and says this, how is that one going to be assessed? It lists this test will include content on that objective. And then the final exam will be given during finals week, and it includes questions related to key topics and course objectives. And I did say that the final exam is one tool to measure the course student learning outcomes. It's not the only tool, it's not the ultimate tool, but in this, these were the course student learning outcomes as identified. And so identify and describe the role of respiratory care professional was an outcome, and that was checked in assessment 1, but also assessment 4, which is the final. And then this one was also assessment 1 and 4. And then this other larger SLO really included assessments 2, 3, and 4, all had questions that helped to measure that learning. So I think I prefaced this by saying there was a reason I did this in Word format. One more part. Their grading scale, again, this grading scale included assignments, discussions, and assessments. And their assignments were 30% of the grade. And assignments were described to students as assignments provide students with the opportunity to practice applying the skills and knowledge as a means of achieving course objectives. So that's why I have them. I don't have them just to make you do busy work, but it's really giving you the opportunity that's not as heavily weighted as other things, but it's giving you the opportunity to practice those things. And then discussions that they had either in class or online, they demonstrated a student's ability to describe and explain, to actually interact with other students and try to incorporate that knowledge into something that then I can describe and explain. And when we look at SLOs, a lot of them say, well, is describe a good SLO? Is explain a good term to use for SLOs? But really I try not to focus so much on the terms, but really on the intent. What do we really want here? And then the quizzes and exams, those types of assessments provide measurable results to evaluate student learning. Did you get this? Now the pressure's on, you're having a test. What are you able to give back? Did you retain any of that from practicing and explaining and describing? And then the final, it's the tool that can evaluate student understanding of the course content and a student's ability to synthesize and utilize all the material. The final exam is a tool to support the measuring the achievement of the course student learning outcomes. Again, it's not the only tool, but it can be used as a tool. Okay, let's pull it all together and see what students got from the course. See if they were able to, pull it all together and apply it. So I did this, let's see, in a certain way so that we can, I don't want, my sharing is in the way of my view here, so I'm trying to. So when you have all of those pieces, these last 2 pages is more what you're used to seeing as a syllabus. I know it's going to be small. I'm trying to show both pages at once. But when you look at a course syllabus, and again, you've probably done plenty of them yourselves, again, there's going to be other pieces in there, your contact information, things like that. But really some of the main pieces are going to be the course title and your description. And again, so descriptions covering all these things, and then your objectives, and your objectives are matching the course description. And then your student learning outcomes, which also flow from the course description, the objectives, and into the outcomes. And then the calendar that you might have in your syllabus. Again, each week you're going to be linking to your outcomes and objectives. And then also with the exams and grading that describe all of that learning. So that's just an example that I thought hopefully the framework from it will help you to, look at, this can be how you build your syllabus and how you look at your course outline of record, or how you would build a new course outline of record. So I hope that that example was something that maybe you can think about and apply maybe pieces of it to your own coursework. And that's all I have, unless anybody has questions.
All right. So yeah, I'm glad to see how you the color wording, you had intentional alignments of an alignment, I'm sorry, of the objectives and the SLOs. Why did you do that? What caused you to make sure that the students focus on the skills and competencies versus the final or the midterm?
Mm-hmm. Well, and then as you said, it's the alignment of all of those things, but then the final and midterm, the assignments themselves are just part of the assessing. It's not the be all end all, the grade versus the learning, so I think the color, I think, was just a way. I mean, you don't need to do that for students, but it's a way for the faculty, as they're thinking about how am I going to teach this course, to identify what is it supposed to be. It reminds you of, am I covering, all of those important elements? that need to be, again, that were developed, again, going back to the why. Why are we doing this? Well, we want students to be able to do this. And so if you're looking at all of those components, I think one of the things that helps direct too is to can get rid of some of that extra fluff that might get in the way of focusing on the key objectives in learning. It might help focus on, again, moving away from just the text covers all of this material, but there's 20 pages of reading there that aren't important for my outcomes. I really want them to be able to spend the time focusing and discussing and analyzing, and not maybe necessarily testing them on concepts that are not really as important. And again, focus on trying to apply some either critical thinking or writing or whatnot into your courses that demonstrate that.
Thank you.
I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, you
I
did.
think you're right. I think the color coding, I think, is a good way to try to align and make sure that you're covering all of those, that I'm not missing anything.
And also the fact that, you have 50% of the grading is not on the the final exam or the midterm, on activities and assignments. So you really are, doing formative assessments throughout the year. So thank you. Jarek?
Yes, Lorraine, fantastic. I mean, you just put everything in such wonderful context. I just would like you, if you don't mind, very briefly go back to your discussion about the beginning, the origin of the course outline of record, right? You start with an idea, which I think that's a very revealing concept, right? That it's sort of like, hey, the department gets together. Why don't we have a need here? Why don't we create a course around it? If you could please comment a little bit about the issue of the textbook, because that's something that, again, it seems to be, I really have heard a number of comments. That's sort of the quick and dirty, the cheapest, the least expensive, least effort taking solution, right? You have a textbook. Well, what do you know? There is already 16 chapters in it. Our semester is how long? Oh, wow.
Yeah, right.
And the rest is history, right?
Yeah.
So if you could please comment a little bit about this again, very fragile yet such important step at the beginning of the process, to see how checks and balances could be, or what types of checks and balances are applied to make sure that publishers don't drive our curriculum.
Yeah, and I have a funny story there too. When I was teaching one course, we have 18-week semester, but week 8, then the textbook I had was 18 chapters, but week 18 was our final. So I crammed in 2 chapters in the last week. And sure enough, when I told you I do an assessment with students, how did you learn that, how well do you think you understood this concept? That one they didn't get because it was 2 weeks, and 2 weeks of material in 1 week, or what I was asking them to do. As you might have heard, I have been in my role as SLO coordinator too. I did serve on a curriculum committee, SLO committee. And we, at that time, and I think those conversations are still happening throughout the state, we're looking at our general education, requirements too, a GETSI and whatever we're going to call them, a local degree. When you really look down into the GE outcomes that are adopted, statewide, there's some outcomes about, looking at the world and applying, and we look at all of our outcomes. Really, those are the things that should drive how we come up with, not just do we like this idea. We're looking at students. We want students to be good citizens, participate in our community. All of the outcomes that are driven either on general education basis, institutional basis, work for your program, really should drive what you're trying to help your students achieve. And so, we, especially with guided pathways, we're really trying to move away from, oh, I think the content of this course would be good for students, and there's this great book on it and whatnot. But really trying to focus, how are we going to support our students to be, good citizens, lifelong learners, successful, all of those things. So it's not by knowing the content of this book, it's a little deeper or greater than that. So open educational resources, I think, is, a great drive too, because, that we know that many students don't buy the book for our class. And I'm still a big advocate. You need to read to learn, but we also need to look at tools, particularly in community colleges, when the books are expensive and we're asking them to, just follow along with this book. We need to kind of look outside of that as well and say, really, my role as faculty is to give them the tools and materials, but they need to be active participants in the learning. So is that, I'd caution you too, I did do a test bank one summer. I was asked to write a test bank for this book. And it's like, oh, that would be a nice summer gig. There was, but each textbook, each chapter was supposed to have 100 questions. So many multiple choice, so many true false, so many, and I'm embarrassed now, so don't go through text and look for my name as far as a contributor. But I didn't have the training really to make sure that I was covering all of those, what's important. So I just caution using tools that are created that might not truly reflect what you're hoping to get from your students. Again, they're in business, they do a great job, they provide great tools, there's a lot of great materials, but again, also look at them for what works for you and for your students, for what's helping you get back, get that feedback from students, because really you want to help them be successful in that course. You're passionate about the topic and the subject that you're teaching. So you want to instill certain knowledge to them, do it the way that works for you. And, some assessments might be from the book because they're good tools and some might not be.
That's right. That's right. Fantastic. Thank you very much. This is very insightful answer. Really appreciate your time. Fantastic presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
Okay, we can jump in if that's okay with you all.
Please go right ahead, Tricia. Sorry, I think we lost Enrique for a second. Go right ahead. I apologize. Go right ahead, Tricia.
Sure. So I'm just going to share the screen on behalf of our folks, and each one will have a slide, and I'll let them take care of their introductions and jump into their content.
Sounds good.
Okay. Sorry, taking a second here.
All right, I guess that's me. Okay, so I welcome everybody. Thank you for inviting me to present. I'm currently in my second term as curriculum chair at Long Beach City College. I also teach art history in the visual media arts department. So I'm coming at this from an arts and humanities perspective. And I also want to I'm going to shift the focus a tiny bit to be more about course content analysis. And then I'll talk a little bit about SLOs at the end. So next slide, please. So my first question, of course, is, because let me just give you some context. So at Long Beach City College right now, we're extremely focused on diversity. DEIA, I believe, is the jargon now that we're using about accessibility, inclusion. And so much of what I'm going to talk about today is how to maybe engage your students differently and to think about your course outline in a creative way. So the first thing that I want to mention, and these are examples from my course. So I, or my courses that I've taught. So basically, if you look back on some of the course outlines that because most of the time, what we're dealing with is an existing course outline. We occasionally have new courses, of course, and we talk about, and they have to submit their SLOs, and we pair them with the objectives and the outcomes. But when it comes to older courses, the courses that already exist and have been the same way for a long time, I think the first thing you got to look at is your textbooks. I mean, first of all, you're supposed to update them to be, less than 5 years old anyway. But this is just a really blunt example of when you absolutely need to change your course outline. If you have outdated textbooks, for example, even offensive textbooks. I mean, these are all textbooks related to the study of African art. So back in the 80s, when I was in school, they actually used the masterpieces of primitive art. So primitive art was the official designation of things that were non-Western. So that's obviously got to go. Then the next one is non-Western art, which again, nobody wants to be a non. They want to be their own thing, right? So that one is also basically, the information may be interesting, but it's really not suitable. So then finally you get to history of art of Africa. how simple is that? You know, it's straightforward. It describes what the textbook is going to cover. And so this is one of the things that I recommend you look at immediately to just make sure that your textbook actually aligns with current standards, current jargon, and your actual course objectives and outcomes. Next slide, please. So next, what I want to get into is when to change assignments. And this is also related to diversity and inclusion. And because what we're really focusing on at Long Beach is updating our course outlines to include culturally responsive pedagogy, so as often as possible. So here's an example of a revised assignment. This is something, and this is, and basically what this falls into is sometimes if you write your SLOs in a fairly general way, because the last thing we want to do is change SLOs every year, right? Because I discovered something new, we got to change our SLO. We want to keep those SLOs intact as long as possible, because then we have a trend. You know, then we can see what's actually happening with this particular SLO. So what I've decided to do in my course was not necessarily change the SLOs, but maybe change some of the assignments to make them more engaging with students. So basically, one of the things you do in art history is I would hold an in-class debate about the Parthenon marbles. And so Greece has, these are Parthenon marbles that are currently located in the British Museum. They've been there since 1816, I believe. They've been repeatedly, the British Museum and Parliament basically have been repeatedly asked for the return of these marbles because they were looted under questionable circumstances. So basically we did that debate over and over again, and it was always about the Parthenon marbles. And I started to think about this, and I'm like, it's really about something called repatriation. So next slide, please. So repatriation is a hot topic right now. There's tons of information on it. So, you know, museums are constantly being asked, you know, can you give this back? How did you get it? What's the provenance? And so basically this, I started to think that maybe I could get the students actually kind of angry about this. And whenever you're angry about something or you're shocked by something, you tend to kind of dig into it a little bit more. So what I decided to do is, instead of limiting it to the Greek marbles from the Parthenon, why not open it up to every ethnicity, culture, nation, whatever, and let the students choose based on their own interest. So next slide, please. So essentially what I did is I thought, okay, I show a little clip from Black Panther where he's in the museum asking, where did you get this stuff? I'll take it off your hands. And then of course, people get killed and it's crazy. But anyway, most of the students have seen Black Panther. Most of them are excited by it. So I insert this and then I say, do the assignment. And the key part is share it with your colleagues. I asked them to do a presentation if at all possible. And so they're still learning the concept of repatriation, but they're learning it in an area that they are interested in. So next slide, please. So basically, and I'll get to this in just a second. So what happens with the repatriation assignment now is it can be used for one of the SLOs, or there's another option. And so that's, I think, important in your courses, that sometimes you'll have a student demonstrate an outcome really well in one assignment, maybe not so much in another, because we have an in-depth analysis paper at the end we can always use. But if they show a strong interest in the historical context, then I can use that for one of my SLOs. So, and now I want to give you another example. So, because what we have at Long Beach City College is something called a cultural curriculum audit. And that's where this experience of mine comes from, is working with faculty to update their course outlines to be more culturally responsive. So one of our faculty members dove into updating the content of Philosophy 4. So it was just simply called the History of Ancient Philosophy course. Now, it covers all the usual suspects, right? Socrates, Aristotle, who you'd expect. However, he determined that I could add more content. And this is important because if you change your content on your course outline, you may have to resubmit it for GE approvals, articulation, all that kind of stuff. Now, if you just add to the content, if you can possibly do that, then you're golden. You just do your out of cycle review or your routine review and you go for it. So let me go to the next slide, please. So, so yeah, in the original course, there was 1 hour to cover non-Western philosophy, Buddha, Lao Tzu, Confucius. There's no way. It's a joke, right? I mean, an hour for all those major figures. Not going to happen. So basically the faculty members said, okay, I'm going to create a new outline. It's going to have ancient Egyptian, ancient Indian, a section on Confucianism. So go forward, please, Tricia. And now, so what about SLOs? Well, in this particular instance, he didn't have to change them, because if you'll read them, you'll see that they basically say key concepts in ancient philosophy. They do not designate Western, non-Western, Greeks, Romans, whatever. It can be anything from ancient philosophy. So he's good to go, because he's just added content, and he can still, I think, use the assignments that he has to fulfill these SLOs, or at least assess them. So like I said, the benefit for me is I always encourage faculty, when they're writing an SLO, think about the future. Don't just think about today, what you've just learned. Think about, what if we kept this SLO in place for 6 years? Would it suffice? Would it make sense? You know, so they think about that. And go to the next one, please. So I think that's the fine thing. So what I wanted to explain about the context of LBCC is that my experience with working with folks in the audit has been primarily focused on content updates, syllabus updates. Also, most of us use Canvas, and so every Canvas assignment is usually linked to a particular objective on the Canvas shell. So that's our method of like explaining to students, here's your assignment, here's what you're going to learn, do it. You know, so they have a pretty good understanding about that. So what I'm interested in seeing in the future is how these changes to content are going to eventually impact the SLOs, because they haven't, very few people have actually addressed that, which is probably unfortunate. You know, you should obviously be concerned about your SLOs when you're redoing your course, but basically they've been focusing on their syllabus, getting their Canvas shell updated, changing course content, which is great, but we haven't really reached the point, in my opinion, where there's a wholesale sort of examination of SLOs. But we've got a great SLO coordinator who's going to speak to you in a minute, who has really made this process much more efficient, much more clear. And so I think we will have some activity on those SLOs. And the SLO committee is under curriculum, so we are in constant contact. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. So I'm going to turn it over to Candace. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Candace Morales Dickerson, and I'm also from Long Beach City College, and I teach in the reading and teacher prep department. I'm also teaching composition, and really excited for next semester to be teaching ethnic studies in education. We actually just finished, a colleague of mine and another colleague from ethnic studies just finished the OER curriculum for that and submitted, and really excited about the information that we'll be sharing with students. So my discussion is very specific to a course. It was a curriculum redesign, and it's for a course called Read 84, which is analytical reading, and it is a class in reading and teacher preparation. It's a reading course. Tricia, you can change the slide. So this is one of those situations where we had this course outline, and a lot of myself and the faculty that were teaching this course, we felt we were teaching it well, but I think we sort of had this guilt that we weren't teaching it the way that it was listed in our, doing the things that were in the outline, because we knew the outline wasn't what we were supposed to be teaching or the way we were supposed to be teaching. So we were a little late on changing that, and we realized, and we were also trying to do both. We were using best practices in teaching critical thinking, but at the same time, we knew that our course outline had to change. This course is transferable to the CSU and UC system. That the transfer to UC system is fairly new. Unlike our other reading courses, it's pretty heavy in writing. So English 1, reading and composition, is a prerequisite to the course. It really begins with the students taking a look at themselves and what type of thinking that they do on a day-to-day basis. And we really try to, in that course, begin with these really good foundational practices of the skills and dispositions and qualities and characteristics of a critical thinker. And then they really look at these sort of speed bumps in critical thinking, which later helps them with understanding fallacies. We get into, not too heavy, but we get into logic and understanding views on argument. And then eventually they learn to create their own arguments, and have opportunity to write argument papers, and then even practice that in sort of a mock debate. So I'm pretty confident in saying that pretty much the instructors that teach this course, we all follow a very similar pattern of teaching through our different assignments, which matches the course description. If you look at the two course descriptions, I know it's a little bit small, but they basically say the same thing. They're not different from one another. And our SLOs that we created, we felt very confident in them, in that, students really need to be able to determine and evaluate argument in an authors and a speakers, and themselves as well too. A big component of the course is that we tend to really turn on good critical thinking skills when we're analyzing and evaluating somebody else's thinking, but we don't so much do it in ourselves. So this class tends to be really eye-opening for students. I think in some ways they try to push back a little bit because it's very different, especially now. I think we're, really focused on, it's very important to hold on to beliefs and feel very strongly about them. And it's okay to share those beliefs, and no one should make you change them. So this class also teaches them that, yes, belief is one thing, but verifiable fact and, being truth seekers is a difference. So it's almost, I'll even go so far as to say, students will say it's a little life-changing, because their thinking is, it's very much changed. So we felt very confident about these SLOs, and also being able to write in length where they explain their own point of view and evaluated argument. Next slide. So then we said, okay, well, we're doing that, but the objectives to reach those outcomes are not what we're doing. And in some ways we felt that they were archaic, and they kind of bordered on this area, which if we were to look at maybe some of our English courses in the English department, they were kind of hinting more towards that. And we really wanted to show how this course was separate from another critical thinking course that is very popular, which is English 3 in the English department. But we found that, it was a little too close like that. And a lot of students would come to our course thinking that they were going to work with literature and things like that. And then soon found out that, no, it's all expository nonfiction text. We often really focus on controversial current issues as well too, to practice those critical thinking skills and dispositions. So we were looking at the text that we were working with, which is predominantly OER. We tend to use the same textbook, but we saw that, we were following along more with what our OER texts were focusing on. And we decided to kind of work in that way. And I don't know if that seems a little bit more backwards, which is fine. I think as long, as Wendy mentioned before, being very aware of what you're teaching and knowing that, okay, this is not enough, or this doesn't match, or, this isn't critical thinking, then it needs to be modified. It needs to be changed. So if you look at the list, we're really focused on building that requisite knowledge of being a critical thinker. We can't just jump into it in teaching argument. Students really have to build that skill base and learn that, it starts with them first, and recognizing their own thinking. And then we get into, the real things about, argument. What are the parts of an argument? And then analyzing argument, we focus on asking questions. So the class is all about, having the ability and awareness and desire to ask questions and to look for those important pieces of information. So this class is the very opposite of just knowledge, right? Like just soaking in information. It is very much focused on analysis, evaluation, and synthesis. So we feel that a few years ago, working on these course objectives with another colleague, we felt very confident that this matched, our weeks. We can even almost like break it down into how many weeks we spend on each of these objectives. Next slide. So this is where it gets more specific about how those objectives are broken down into how much time we spend and that kind of thing. So the very beginning of the semester, we're really focused on developing them as critical thinkers. And I tell them there's never enough time. This is a lifelong, ongoing endeavor. And it's a lot of hard work to become a critical thinker. And it's this, constant awareness of your own thinking. And so we really focus on that before we get into the analysis and the evaluation part. And the last part of the course in the third section is where they get to synthesize their own arguments. On the left-hand side, our previous course outline, I think we even had things in there like literary devices and stuff. And it was like, no, we don't, we're not literature teachers, although we may in other reading courses incorporate literature, fiction. That's not what this class is about at all. And so I don't know where, some of when we look at our content outlines, we're like, whoa, well, who was writing this and what did they think? And I'm sure they had really good intentions, but it doesn't even match, sort of the philosophy, not only of the course, but in the department, what we focus on. So, but I think, a long time ago, especially when reading courses were developed, there's so much to cover when you think of like a reading course. And I think we just wanted to be able to capture everything to make sure our students had all of those strategies and tools. But what we're looking at is very, academic reading skills, particularly with nonfiction expository text. So we feel now that our, content outline really matches. It feels comfortable knowing that we've got it, all this information stated somewhere, and then we can go into the classroom and say, yes, we do this and this and this. And I think it definitely gives us better data when we go and look at our success rates and, our, how we assess the SLOs. We've also done a lot of changes on that too. We used to have a multiple choice test because we thought it would be quicker and easier for both students and ourselves. And we just know that we just can't measure critical thinking in that way because the way we teach the class is not in a multiple choice fashion. It's a lot of writing, a lot of reflection and self-evaluation. And so our assessments have changed using rubrics to that, align with the outlines and the objectives. And so we feel that we get better data in that way and that students aren't surprised. I think that instead of doing them a service by, making it multiple choice, students were like, but this isn't how we've been learning all along. And so we've really tried to keep things very uniform. And then we can very clearly see through this, where are the areas that we need to really focus on, whether it's making changes in our teaching practices or how much time we spend on things. And you can imagine it really focuses on things like assumptions and values, those things that are not directly stated in arguments. And I think that this, change that we've gone through with the objectives and the content allows us to look at the data more specifically and, create either lessons or how much time we spend on something more accurately because we have everything matches and aligns. So yeah, that's about it, just because it's one particular course. But I would say that we at the reading department, I'm really proud that we do that with all of our courses. We are really intentional to make sure that our teaching matches what's written on paper here in our course outline of records. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Candice, could I just, if you don't mind, if you could just briefly elaborate a little bit about on student involvement, right? You made a statement that, you know, gosh, that certainly attracted my attention. SLOs are life-changing. And if you could please, because again, that's even though we talk about student learning outcomes, right? The first word is student. We really don't normally communicate student learning outcomes, you know, those skills and competencies to students. We don't have good mechanisms. If you could please elaborate a little bit, how do you engage students in the discussions about SLOs? What it is that they are really learning in the courses?
So I think really since the pandemic, been very intentional about, and I think it was either Trisha or Wendy mentioned about our curriculum, our cultural curriculum audit. And there's a lot of emphasis placed on, especially in teaching an online course, and all of our courses, I would say, are at least web enhanced because we use Canvas, that management system. But in that, we learned that being very intentional about when you put up a content page, or in my case, I use these sort of weekly checklists. I always have the course objective for that week. And I really try to show how, you know, this assignment that we're working on is going to help us do this. So I think our first outcome, our first objective on there is building the requisite knowledge of a critical thinker. So in the first 4 weeks, they are seeing that objective over and over, because I spend about 4 weeks on it with different activities. So when they see in week 2, which is the introduction to critical thinking, where they learn, you know, skills and qualities and characteristics, right there, they can see it says, why are we doing this? To build the requisite knowledge of a critical thinker. So then when we have online discussions, or if it's a face-to-face or hybrid course, I always bring that in, like, okay, you know, again, this is week 3, we are still building the requisite knowledge of a critical thinker, so that when we have discussions, they can begin to use that terminology. And then they see that, you know, their learning has meaning, and those objectives are in the syllabus. They see them online attached to assignments, or, you know, content pages, or, you know, like I use checklists. And so that they can see that and begin to use that kind of verbiage in their discussions.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. And if I may, I do have one question for Wendy, if you don't mind. In your presentation, you know, you started talking about those book covers, and I just would like to know, do you have a system, or is it just, you know, hey guys, this doesn't jive with me? Because you know, our equity discussions, right, have been focused on, you know, hey, you know, be easy on our students, give them pass on the midterm, be easy on the homework, and if they are late to class, we understand. But the point is that that's not necessarily addressing the equity issues as you express them, as you describe them. I would really appreciate your thoughts on this. What governs those discussions?
I mean, the main mechanism we have for checking the textbook is the 6-year course routine review process that we go through, which is required by the state. So, but that's, you know, 6 years, right? So what I've been really trying to push in the cultural curriculum audit, and we've had like more than 300 faculty take part in it, so it's a pretty big, you know, group of people, is to tell them as they're reviewing their course outline, look at the textbook now, because you can always do what's called an out of cycle review, which I highly recommend for a lot of folks. Like, if you see something urgent, do it now. I'll sign off on it, you know, I'll look at it. And so that's our main goal, is to kind of just, you know, the regular routine review, but also talking individually to faculty and showing them these examples in the audit. And that usually sort of spurs them to kind of, hey, I think I want to look at this. So we've kind of resisted like any kind of top-down mandate, because we really want to encourage people to do this if they want to do it, you know, because if you force people to do something, it's never good, you know. So that's my main mechanism, and people reach out all the time and say, you know, hey, can I change this right now? And I'm like, sure, change it right now, no problem. Because the only reason we have to turn it into the chancellor's office is if they change the face page, and they may not need to do that. So I try to make it as easy as possible for them to update content. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing this. Jacqueline is already asking, Where is it? Where's the rubric? Where's the document? Come on. Can you share?
So
Well, the guidelines, right? If you have any specific rubric, I suppose, or a document that guides the
I do have a curriculum handbook that I'm happy to share that kind of outlines the routine review process. So let me drop it in the chat.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much. Excellent. Right on. Trisha, back to you.
Candace has her hand.
Oh, please.
Oh, I was just reading in the chat, and I saw that Margaret had a very good question, but it looks like you're going to address that next week. But I just wanted to say very quickly, it's been a process, at least for Read 84. And like I briefly mentioned, that we've gone through using one type of assessment, and then we went back and changed it. And now I feel very confidently that we actually use 2 rubrics to assess the 2 different objectives. And one of those rubrics does very intentionally, because I think we have something like determine and evaluate in our first outcome. So this has just been it's been a process, and using one thing, okay, that doesn't work or doesn't quite get to one of those. But I feel really good now that, and it's not multiple choice. It is writing, and we, talk about what writing we're going to use or what project we're going to use to get to those. But just making sure the writing or the project addresses both of those if it has, 2 different actions in it.
A question for Candace or Wendy. As a new faculty, what recommendations would you give, if for those new faculty who are starting, if, for example, if Jarek and I are both teaching math and I'm the new faculty, but then Jarek's telling me, Enrique, this is your SLOs, this is the curriculum, and I have my academic freedom. I can teach the class the way I want to. What resources or would you recommend for us to, or for me as a new math faculty to start? This is the right course, outline a record. This is a good samples of objectives or outcomes.
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, a lot of this ends up being kind of department specific, which is sometimes unfortunate. I mean, certainly you have academic freedom and you should pursue that as much as you can. My advice would be to work with your DH. And first of all, it's impressive that you even want to look at the course outline of record, because we have countless part-time faculty who I don't think they've ever looked at it because they teach at 5 campuses. They're like, I don't know, I'm just teaching the same thing I teach over here. So wanting to, diving into the course outline and making recommendations. If you have a standard thing in your department, it makes it more difficult. But if you have a little bit of flexibility, I would take advantage of that wholeheartedly and talk to your DH and say, I want to update this course outline. Here's why it's outdated, or this jargon is wrong, or whatever it is. And I think they would appreciate that, I would hope, because that's the work of faculty, is curriculum development. And, so it's part of the 10+1 from the Senate. I mean, it's clearly your purview to teach the way you want to teach. It's just pushing on it a little bit to see that you can get away with it, basically, because you're going to probably change your, if you change your course outline, you're likely going to change your syllabus. There may be some pushback from them. Well, we've always used a syllabus. Well, I'm sorry, it's 2022. It's time to update. So just, I would push as hard as I can. And I obviously don't want to risk tenure if you're part-time or something, but it's a reasonable request. So and also getting the backing of your curriculum chair might help, because I always advocate for faculty when DHs reach out and they say, I want to do this. I'm like, they should do it. Let's do it. Let's get it done. So that's my advice. I don't know if Candace wants to chime in too.
There's just one thing I wanted to add, and if at all possible, create collaboration with another faculty member. I know in our department, there's no way that a lot of the things that we do with SLOs, we could do all alone by ourselves. It's really been a process through collaboration. you know, having another faculty member to talk to plan, to, you know, this is not all my, you know, this was in consultation with other faculty members and a close working relationship with another full-time faculty member that teaches this course often. And so, you know, it definitely lessens the workload, but it's also really good to have that support and to each go into the classrooms and put into practice, you know, what's on the outlines and, you know, those and meeting those objectives.
And the reason I say that, thank you, Candace. The reason I say that is because, you know, Jadick has been teaching for 20 years and I'm the new faculty in the discipline with Jadick, but Jadick's doing assessments with letter grades. And so I had the opportunity to look at the core. And so I don't agree with Jadick. And so, but I don't want to risk my tenure. How do I focus? Because I'm attending the SLO Friday talks. I'm learning from all this wonderful, you know, faculty and SLO coordinators, but Jad is doing the opposite. He has his own thing and he's pushing those objectives upon me.
I would say don't risk your tenure. Get through the tenure process and then challenge me. That's my advice, because I know a lot of people come in gangbusters, like I just got out of grad school, I'm going to teach you all what's going on. You have to work with people and come to some kind of consensus, but I would focus mostly on your work right now with your tenure process and get that past you, because I know a lot of faculty have really had some anxious moments because they tried to speak up and it wasn't well received. I'm not saying that's going to happen in your campus, but you just got to be careful. You got to play the room. So I would say hold off on your ambitions. You'll get there. You'll get there.
And maybe I could just underscore that also a little bit, Wendy, to just say, there may be certain things that are outside of our control, but what we do inside of our classroom is within our control, right? And so we see that there's something on the course outline of record or the content outline, but because we have academic freedom, we have the way to deliver that content in a way that we feel is most authentic and most helpful to our students, right? And then to kind of just maybe underline some of the things that Wendy and Candace have already shared. A lot of their sharing today talked a little bit about our cultural curriculum audit, and also talked about Candace's class and Wendy's class both talked about examples from courses that were already in existence, right? So a lot of times when we think about a brand new course, we think about writing the content, and then that content drives the writing of the student learning outcomes. But here we're taking a look back at our classes, right? And we're looking at SLOs, and in Candace's case with Read 84, she felt great about the SLOs. The SLOs were strong. It was the content outline that didn't match that. And granted, she does have tenure and she does have the way to do that. And also we work in a department that is incredibly, I don't even know how to describe us. Just the department is just really forward thinking and willing to experiment and explore ways to make student learning more impactful and to improve how we do what we do so that our students walk away with the things that we promise them. And then of course we have Wendy in our as our curriculum chair. So when we want to make a change like that, she's willing to sign off on an out of cycle course review to get the content outline to match the student learning outcomes. But even then, Candace didn't stop, right? Even at that, she's got the content outline now, she's got the SLOs that she likes, but she realizes that she needs to develop an assessment that is authentic. And so then she moved into that piece, right? Where really working to make sure that as we assess the student learning, as we consider whether or not students are meeting these outcomes that we promise to deliver to them, they're assessing in a way that is going to get at the heart of whether that learning is taking place or not, and where the strengths and weaknesses lie. So anyway, I just thank them very much for presenting and for sharing today, because they're wonderful examples of what can be done with hard work and a little willingness. Okay, so it seems like we have a few more minutes to maybe move into the next phase. And so I do see some of the questions in the chat. And I don't know that we have gotten that far yet, Enrique. But I think that as much as we can involve students in the process, whether it's writing the SLO or just owning their process for reaching that SLO through the delivery of content and through the learning that they're doing, if they can own that, hey, I've done this, this, and this, and it has helped me to achieve the ability to do this as I walk away from this class. And now I can apply that learning in every other class that I take. I think that owning that process and owning that learning is a huge step. And so the way that Candace sets up her checklist every week, I think is a great pattern.
Indeed, excellent practice. Thank you, Tricia. Yes, I think we can move on to your part of the presentation unless there are any questions. I see that there is some discussions in the yes. So again, just so that everybody knows that the recording is going to be available. Please send me an email if you want to be a part of the listserv. People keep asking. Seems like this is a very frequently asked question. So we are all good. And yes, there is always a question about resources. So thank you again for sharing. I think we are good to go, Tricia.
Okay, so at this point, I'd like to, you all have met me, I introduced myself, I'm the SLO coordinator, but I'd like to let Michael introduce himself. And then we're going to co-present on this next portion of today.
Thanks, Tricia. Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael. I'm an associate professor of anthropology, and I'm serving as the online education faculty coordinator. And I've been working very closely with Tricia and a small work group to implement this process we're about to share with you. Thanks for having me here.
And I'd also just like to point out that Michael was very much involved in the cultural curriculum audit and these processes. So you're hearing from some of our best today, folks. Thanks to all for joining. Okay, so related to establishing a syllabi review process, we had accreditation take place, or the site visit take place last spring at Long Beach City College, and our accrediting body is ACCJC. They visited in spring and they identified that there was some concern with the inaccuracy of student learning outcomes listed on a sample of faculty syllabi that they reviewed. And so they determined that our college needs to come into compliance with standard 2A3, which is simply that in every section, students receive a course syllabus that includes learning outcomes from the institution's officially approved course outline. And I'd like to just pause real quick right here to say that this, while it's never fun to realize that you need to come into compliance with a standard, we felt that this was actually really encouraging, and the process that we developed was really helpful because it does make that link between, you know, faculty working on their syllabi while having to at least once look at their course outline of record, right? So this again makes this connection for all full-time and part-time faculty having to go to the course outline of record to find the SLOs, and potentially then realizing, hey, oh, there's this content that I'm not teaching, or there's this content that I really want to work on for an out-of-cycle review or something like that. So it really does bring faculty eyes onto our course outline of record, which is really our currency, right? And so because ACCJC then is requiring LBCC to follow, or to submit a follow-up report in May of 2023, we had to put a process into place to remedy this recommendation. And so what we did is we really put a lot of the ownership on faculty. And so we have, you know, some administrative support staff that had helped to collect syllabi in the past, that had worked with storage and archival, things like that. We have faculty taking certain roles, and then we have clearly the administration and the board that are concerned that we need to meet this recommendation for compliance, right? So what did we ask faculty to do? First of all, we asked them to ensure that the SLOs on their syllabi match the SLOs on their course outline of record. And then we have a process for doing this, and in a moment, Michael's going to demonstrate this process for us. We also asked them to name their syllabi according to a proper or a standard naming convention. And we did this so that our support staff isn't going to have to go through and rename every syllabus, right? And we're going to be able to store and archive these syllabi for easy access, both if we're requested, if we get a request from ACC-JC, or if a student goes to another institution and then they come back and they say, hey, I remember taking a course at your institution. I think that it might be equivalent. Can I have a copy of your syllabus, right? So this enables us to make sure we have this archive available. And then we have been asking them to submit their syllabi via the SLO checker assignment within our Canvas school level shell. And then we'll ask them to do this for every course and section that they teach each semester. And so Michael is going to share in just a moment, but I did want to point out a couple things that we feel really good about. In addition to the fact that faculty are looking at their course outlines of record, we also feel good that it is a faculty developed, homegrown system, that we're not having to pay for additional software at the institution, and that, again, it's addressing so many things. It's addressing the compliance recommendation from ACC-JC. It's ensuring our students have syllabi that have accurate learning outcomes, but it's also giving us the opportunity across the campus to really touch our course outlines of record and make sure that we are delivering on our promise to our students, right? And so with that said, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to let Michael take over.
All right, thank you, Tricia. I'm going to do a screen share and take you all to perhaps a familiar place known as Canvas. Here we go. All right, so one thing that we found quite early on in this process is that each school on our campus and each department on our campus seem to have a different way of faculty submitting their syllabi. Some were already using Canvas. The majority would email it. And then some, they printed and turned in a hard copy. So there was quite a wide variety of approaches to this. So we seized the opportunity to create something uniform. And we built syllabus submission Canvas shells for every school on our campus. And what you're seeing here is a demonstration shell on what that looks like. Most immediately, you will see the most important part, the syllabus submission. And I teach in the School of Social and Behavioral Sciences, which consists of two departments, History, Poli-Sci, Ethnic Studies, and Social Science. So I'm going to show you what this looks like from the faculty side when they submit their syllabi. So clicking on this takes them to a Canvas assignment that we built. And this assignment is the same for every department in every single school on our campus. And we begin with a rationale of what is this and why are we doing it? Again, referring to the accreditation recommendation we received. And then we have a 4-minute demonstration video that outlines every step of the process so that it's very, very clear for our faculty submitters. But then below that, we identify the different steps here. And step 1 involves them looking at the course outline, which we have embedded. This is a live website embedded within the Canvas assignment. So we direct faculty on how to do this because many of them haven't done it before. So for me, I teach anthropology. I go into this box and I type in my course, Anthro 4, and then I find the outcomes. And here are my outcomes right there. Great. And then we direct faculty to check their syllabi in step 2. Do they match exactly with what's up here in the course outline? And most importantly, if they don't, please change them in your syllabus document. Please copy and paste those SLOs into your syllabus document. And then, as Tricia mentioned, we're asking faculty to name these in a consistent way because that makes it much easier to archive them year after year after year. And then finally, they actually submit their syllabus documents. And there's a step here, in addition to just uploading their syllabus documents, that asks faculty to make a submission comment with their syllabus documents. And I'm going to show you very briefly of what that entails. And if you teach on Canvas, your students probably do this all the time. We're asking faculty to copy and paste the outcomes along with their submission as a comment here. So why is that important? Well, the method to that sort of madness, I can say, really comes to the SLO checking phase. After faculty submit their document and they make this submission comment, then our SLO facilitation team gets to check their work. Here's what that looks like. So in the Canvas speed grader, the SLO checkers, if you will, they will see the syllabus document on the left. This is mine. And they will see that assignment comment that the faculty member copy pasted, those outcomes from the COR. That makes it very easy for them to scroll down through the syllabus, locate the student learning outcomes, and verify, yes, they match exactly. And if they do, yes, they match exactly, and that faculty member has completed the task. So this is what we've been piloting this fall semester, and any questions, Tricia and I are happy to answer them.
I did see a question in the chat, just a request, Cheryl was wondering if this is available in Canvas Commons. And the short answer to that is no, it isn't. We're just in the pilot phase. This is the first semester where we are doing this at our institution. And so we haven't, we're still, I think, working out any kinks and developing the process. And we haven't really had that discussion yet about making it available. But we did want to share it out, ask for your questions, any feedback you may have, as it may help us to fine tune our process even further.
There is one more question from Kimberly about the course outline of record and how it relates to the curriculum mapping for the academic program. If there is any, if that could be discussed, the curriculum mapping, if you see it for the academic program, if you could address that. The course outline of record.
Yeah, maybe Wendy, do you have something to add to that?
I think in the course and the digital mappers that we have, you can click on the course to find out information, but that's the only link, direct link to, and I don't know that it goes to the full course outline record. That's a good question, and we should probably address that. So.
Tricia, I had a question.
Sure.
So you said this is a homegrown thing that you're doing in Canvas?
Yes.
Okay. So for us, I think for Fresno, when I say us, it's Fresno City College, we use simple syllabus. And it doesn't matter what database you use, but we use simple syllabus to actually do that, where everything just transfers into your Canvas. And so that's one of the questions people are asking, if this is a homegrown or a database.
Sorry, Enrique, I didn't quite understand your question. Were you just presenting simple syllabus as an alternative?
They were just telling me if it was homegrown that you created at your own campus.
We did. It's homegrown. We created it at our own campus. It was Michael's idea. And, you know, he serves as our online faculty education coordinator. And so he works a lot with Canvas and with, you know, all kinds of faculty needs, helping them to prepare to teach online. And so many, there are so many facets to his job. But I think that when he was considering, at least this was what he shared with me, Michael, you can jump in if you'd like, but when we were just when we had received the recommendation from ACCJC, especially after the vast amount of progress we had made related to our SLO work in the last 2 years, Michael just felt like that was kind of disappointing, and that maybe this was a way to present an easy fix. And maybe easy is not the right word, but a straightforward approach to figuring out a way to ensure that all of our faculty have accurate SLOs on their core syllabi.
So, Michael, if you could comment a little bit about because again, I'm getting here private, and there's a question about, hey, why can't we just do it? Would you please elaborate a little bit about this, the idea of syllabus submission in Canvas? That in itself seems to be like a wow, very, very revealing thought, and certainly a practice that could and should be replicated. I'm sure all of us would benefit from it. How did you get started? Or if you were to kind of go back in your thinking, like how did it originate, and what really went into the thinking behind its design, execution, planning, all those things, if you don't mind.
Sure. No, thank you for the question. And thank you, Tricia, too, for the shout out. I spend a lot of time in Canvas. It's what I do. It's part of the role that I'm in right now. And part of that is when faculty at Long Beach City College want to teach an online class, they need to go through our certification trainings. And I'm the facilitator for those trainings. And part of those part of those online teaching trainings is that they write a syllabus for an online course. So I'm on Canvas as their online faculty coordinator. I'm already looking at syllabi because they submit them to me and I check them. Hey, did you put your Zoom link in there? Are you providing resources for technology support? I'm looking at these documents anyway. So when we received the recommendation from ACCJC about the SLOs being missing or incomplete or inaccurate, it just made sense to me. Well, we're already collecting faculty syllabi in their trainings. Maybe we can just scale that up for this specific purpose of SLO checking, verifying that those SLOs are accurate in those documents. And so initially I went into Canvas, made a sandbox shell, wrote up some instructions, and then I did a little HTML trick to put that course outline public view within the Canvas assignment so they don't have to navigate out. And then I started sharing it with Wendy, Tricia, others, and it caught on. And that was 4 or 5 months ago. We started the planning process for this, and then it's come a long way since that initial idea.
Nice. This may be very revealing, but it looks like it really is not the database, it's the people who put the work into it. That's what makes the difference. So I'm just so admiring the effort of the whole team here. And I heard others speaking about this as well. What is the future? If you were to comment perhaps on integration of information, or how do you actually collect the SLO results? Do you have an integration between Canvas and perhaps other outside system? How does that work out for you?
Are you talking about results of assessment, Jarek, or you're talking about results related to how we're tracking syllabi submissions?
So the syllabus submission would be the beginning of it, right? And then at the end, once the SLOs are in the syllabi, they are in the Canvas, that's one process. And then the assessment happens. So maybe the extension of that, if you could perhaps put the Michael's effort into the context of everything else that happens around the SLO idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I will probably most definitely share in more detail at a future SLO talk, right?
Sure.
But as far as, like Michael said, our institution spends a lot of time in Canvas. So because we're already assessing SLOs in Canvas, we're pulling results of assessment from Canvas to be visualized in Tableau for analysis and action.
Right.
We're utilizing Canvas for so many things. It just makes sense that faculty would submit their syllabi in Canvas at the same time, then really SLOs and Canvas go together, whether it's syllabi submission, whether it's assessment, whether it's, realizing, hey, we're going to pull these results so that we can see them, and ultimately use those results to have conversations about our student learning.
Sure. No. We have seen your visualizations already. As always, the question is about resources. What is out there that's available for the public so that we can, take a peek and learn from you? That's always good.
We have, I'm going to drop a link in the chat, where we talk a little bit about our syllabus submission process. This is on our college's website, and the video demonstration, kind of maybe a more detailed overview for faculty, that 4-minute video is posted publicly. So you could get a quick overview there and see those resources, I guess, maybe before we're ready to roll it out in Canvas Commons and things like that. But yes, those are at least some initial resources that we were happy to provide. And then I did see some questions related to how many people does it take to check, and how are we checking compliance that people are doing this, and so on and so forth. And that really is, again, maybe due to the compliance recommendation, the college is pretty on board as far as addressing it, right? And so we had a process previously where our administrative support staff we're collecting the syllabi. Faculty would really just email them, and then our support staff would either rename them and archive them or do something else, right? And then, but we didn't have a process to verify that SLOs matched. And so now, rather than our support staff receiving hundreds of emails from all of the faculty with random syllabi, everything is submitted through Canvas. And then through that process, there's a standard naming convention, so on and so forth. And then we do have, like Michael mentioned or referred to either earlier, we have a group of what we call SLO facilitators. So our campus is very fortunate in that we have a liaison or two within each department that helps to move our college's SLO efforts along. And so this SLO facilitator is the person who then, in that Michael's last screen share, he showed the syllabus on one side of the pane, and then the submission comments with the SLOs that were copied and pasted from the course outline. So then our SLO facilitators are the ones going through and verifying, yes, this is accurate, no, it's not. I can acknowledge and admit that it took more time this semester than we had anticipated. Then again, it's the first time, right? Everybody on the campus is learning. And so folks have to learn how to participate in a new process. And so, and then I think also we're really asking folks to learn up to the standard. So we want them to not just have the accurate SLOs, but also to make sure it has that submission comment for verification, make sure it's named properly, these kinds of things, so that maybe in the short term, the workload is heavier, but in the long term, the workload should be reduced across the campus, because now we have one process for downloading or for uploading syllabi. We have a process for downloading them. They're all named the proper way. We have our archive, those kinds of things. Wow, fantastic. Very, very elaborate operation. Michael, if I could perhaps get back to you. What do you think is the faculty buy-in, or how do you ensure that faculty follow what it is that you have to say? You mentioned in the process you started very small. How do you work with the rest of the campus?
So for me, step one to that is providing extremely clear instructions from the beginning, and providing those instructions in multiple modalities. So we have the demonstration video, we have the steps written out, we also have a help guide with pictures and arrows that show faculty how to do this. So providing the instructions very clearly so we can capture as many as we can, for me, that's the first step. But in addition to that, before we launched this process, I like to say we took this show on the road to various stakeholders across the campus and shared it with them. and we solicited their input and feedback. So by the end of it, the administrative assistants, the deans, the department heads, faculty, everybody had a hand in the development of this process. So it was very localized in that way. And we were receptive to their feedback, and we employed their feedback. So that way, when we launched this process, we already had, quite a bit of guaranteed buy-in, because they could say, oh yeah, that was my idea, and now I see it in this process. So that's been very helpful as well. If this is something that we just launched without any input, I don't think it would have landed as well,
Right.
or been as successful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a, I mean, that absolutely brilliant way to do it. Absolutely. Yes, you do start small, and then you kind of like, roll it out across campus by going from department to department. I think that makes absolutely a lot of sense. That's again, it certainly seems to be paying off, and it's working for you. So thank you very much for sharing that. What is your future? Where do you think are the areas for expansion, for lack of a better expression? How do you see your operation, let's say, a year from now? If you were to think how to engage departments, or perhaps, where are the gaps? Maybe this way.
Those are great questions.
Yeah,
I don't know that
it
we're quite there yet, Yark. I think maybe my hope or my intention is that the process would be smoother. Folks would have passed through, for the majority of folks, they would have passed through the learning curve. They would have done it once or twice. And so then the naming convention isn't unfamiliar. Putting it in PDF format to submit isn't unfamiliar. The process of checking the course outline of record and ensuring no updates to the SLOs have been made is familiar. Of course, continuing to present at our new faculty orientations and our part-time faculty orientations, continuing to engage stakeholders in various places, both online and in meetings, even things like Wendy invited us to present to the curriculum committee, and our academic senate president invited us to present there. So I think my hope in a year is that it's smoother and there's less verification required because folks are used to the process.
Excellent.
And to jump in with that briefly, Tricia, I just hope in a year's time, it's the normal routine.
Yeah.
This is just what you do at the start of the semester. You check the COR, you write your syllabus, you save it in this way, and you upload it in Canvas. Done. So
Michael, so I actually, I'm glad you clarified it this way, because that really was my intent behind the question. I didn't mean to put your process on in the spotlight and asking you to predict something that doesn't that's not necessarily has been thought through yet. But that we've been talking about SLOs for about 15, maybe even 20 years. And every year, or every 2 years, or every 3 years, yes, we give up one idea at the expense of something else. And we are moving in this, we are constantly in this influx of coming and going. We just started something, and next year will be better. And then we don't hear anything from anybody. And then, we have a different database and yet a different solution. So again, it looks like you are really onto something that's going to stay. And that's the reason behind my question. So thank you very much for clarifying that. I think it looks like you certainly do have a good structure, and it's based on Canvas. Again, everyone has access to it. We don't have to be, buying or spending money, additional resources in training to come up with something new, something different. So thank you very much for that clarification. And
thank you.
Wendy, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add an additional comment, and this is not meant to like drag this whole conversation down, but I do want to make you aware of something that you need to watch for if you decide to adopt something like this. We've actually recently had a whole a whole department kind of revolt about the process, and the facilitator is refusing to finish the process for those who haven't correctly submitted. The reason being is that it's not explicitly outlined in our faculty contract that they have to do this SLO checker process. So they're saying, all we have to do is assess our SLOs. We don't have to do anything else. Even though we've explained to them, it's an accreditation standard. Do you want to work at an accredited institution? I think you do. So I just want to make you aware that there are some wrinkles that could emerge, such as like, if somebody wants to be a hard line about the faculty contract, you gotta find another way to communicate how important this is. So thank you.
Absolutely. There is Jamie is asking about the challenges from the unions. So that's you know, it is what it is. Thank you very much, Wendy. Enrique, go right ahead.
Well, I think Wendy partially answered the question. You know, I know we are all different. Our districts could be single community college districts. Our unions are different. Our standards different. So what about the academic senate? What's the question? I had a question. How did the academic senate feel about it?
Tricia, do you want to take that?
No issue there.
Yes, so I think that as far as generally speaking, we presented at the Senate, we had some very good questions. I think the only concern that we received at the Academic Senate was whether we should be using the Senate's time to present a larger demonstration. But we haven't, for the most part among faculty, we really haven't had a lot of objections. We did have the one department that is willing to ask folks to submit through this process, but as far as follow-up, if they're SLOs or if it's not named properly or something like that, you know, they're not willing to do the follow-up beyond that. But I don't think Academic Senate has any problem at all, really, with our process. And actually, our Academic Senate president has been part of our work group as far as helping to roll it out and working with us and working with faculty. So.
Yeah, I think Michael talked quite a bit about the importance of engaging others, you know, in the process. So again, that's a, you know, excellent effort here. Right on. Sounds good then. Alrighty. Any more questions, comments, suggestions? Fantastic work, everybody. I tell you, I'm just, you know, very, very impressed with the work that you presented and the work that you're doing. This is just a great contribution. Sorry, let me go ahead and I will